Hello. In today's video, I'm going to take some time to explain and show what eastern woodland Native Americans would have worn in the wintertime. This is a video I've procrastinated doing for quite some time now because it's really not a whole lot you can talk about. There's not a whole lot of in-depth. As a matter of fact, Native Americans in the eastern woodlands for centuries were always wearing basically the bare minimum out in the cold. And that was something that just reflected their lifestyle of always being outside, always living in the outdoors, and always being in the elements. They became incredibly toned and good at handling the winter weather, so much so that there's countless records from the Europeans of the time, even as early as the first Thanksgiving, talking about how little the Native Americans actually ever wore in the wintertime, historically. But it's a video that I know a lot of people are wondering about, so it's something I'm going to talk about. And as you can see out here today, I'm dressed in traditional eastern woodland native fashion, and it is roughly about 30 degrees right now, and I've been out here for quite some time, and my body for the most part is pretty well adapted. So let's go through and let's do a quick talk about it. As far as the underlayer garment, you can see I'm wearing a pair of leather deer tan leggings and a breechcloth. Now this is traditional native garb, so there's not a whole lot you can do here. I mean, as you can see, I'm still bare underneath the breechcloth. Skin's still showing. That was just traditional native wear. Now there may be something as wool leggings worn in the winter over the leather or something like that, but still, leggings and a breechcloth, no matter the temperature, was still the traditional native lower wear well into the late 18th century. So that's just the way that was. And as you can see, I still have a pair of traditional center seam moccasins. Now, as far as moccasins would go for walking around in the snow, one, you may carry a spare pair with you in a pack, just because they're going to get wet in the snow. It's going to happen. Now, moccasin liners were a common thing seen, because natives would take the moccasins and line them with something, whether that be as anything. I've heard accounts of even straw in dire situations being used, but either it could be fur, wool, trade cloth, or as I'm wearing today, I'm just wearing a pair of trade wool socks that were commonly traded to the eastern woodland natives. So that's all I'm wearing on my woodland moccasins today. I've been tromping around in the snow for part of the day now, and I've been okay. Now, one thing that was common to see was the flaps that are naturally on eastern woodland moccasins would sometimes be tied up by certain tribes to help keep any snow from going down in the mock. That was a common practice yarn. As for my top half, a lot of eastern woodland natives went without shirts well into the colder temperatures than a lot of people expected. Now, once European contact was made and the trade shirts became so common to the point where by the 18th century almost every woodland native had at least one trade shirt, trade cotton shirt, wearing them in the wintertime was very common. One nice thing about the shirts is they were in that style of the time period. They were often overworn, so over length they were long and baggy. So I mean, they do provide some protection to the lower half that would not normally be seen. But that was a common thing to see, at least wearing once the later European contact time came out. Prior to European contact, as far as leather shirts being worn, that wasn't such a common practice. There's so little talked about it because, again, once European contact was made and records were being written down, again, it was almost immediately that Native Americans were, wearing apparel of cotton clothing or wool clothing. So there's not a lot of talk about what they wore prior to that, but there is some examples of just plain leather shirts being worn by woodland natives, or more commonly dressed up in cloaks and hides, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Now, the first thing you saw me wearing in the video, and this would be something real common, very common, is just a red wool blanket. A common trade blanket of the time period, like this one here. Very common, is it's multi-purpose. It can be my sleeping blanket, but it can be the blanket I sleep with at night, but it also can be wrapped around me, like you saw me doing in the beginning of the video, like so, and just worn in this fashion. And I can tell you what, in the time that I was even talking prior to putting this back on, there was definitely a difference. Right now, I'm actually pretty warm. I'm not cold. You can tell my teeth aren't chattering. I have been out here a while. It is 30 degrees today. It could be colder, could be warmer, but these wool blankets do an amazing job holding in the heat, as you can see, and they also, being wool, they reflect water. That's why they were so loved in modern time. So this would be common. You'd see me carrying my gun, walking through the woods like this. And if I need to drop it in a hurry to get more lever action, I can. It's as easy as flipping up my arm. So, very common thing to be seen. Now, a lot of people have seen me in prior videos or for more extensive research wearing of capotes. That is actually something that did happen during the French and Indian War time period during the 1700s, but it wasn't the traditional red capote you may see with the stripe. It'd be more of a white, simple capote, or military-style capote worn. It did happen. It wasn't as common as just the simple red blanket, but there were woodland natives running around wearing them. At least those offered a hood in the most certain areas. But it did happen. It was something you could see. Now, something else that woodland natives might do in this time is, especially prior to European contact, would be the wearing of hides and furs as capes around you. Now, one thing that woodland natives would do is they might take deer hide, or a real common feature was to sew beaver hides together. It would normally take about 7 beaver hides to make a cloak or a cloak that would just wrap around you. Or just as common as here, I have a simple bear hide. And one thing you see a lot of people do in the movies, and for the looks of it, is wear the fur on the outside. Most commonly, that did not actually happen. I mean, it looks great, it looks way cooler, but it was very common for Native Americans to actually wear leather out, fur in. And the reason for that is pretty obvious, is it's just a lot warmer that way. I would say if you're going down, the wool probably holds the heat in a little better than just the fur, but prior to European contact, this is what available, and even after European contact, furs in the wintertime were still definitely being used for warmth. I mean, whatever you could do, or I could layer up with both of them. I mean, right now it's probably too warm out today for that, but if you wanted to, you could very easily do a mixture of both, or a mixture of a capote on top of a leather wrap. So, hold on guys, I'm going to have to readjust here. No one said it was quick getting dressed in the 18th century. It's not like today where you can just throw on a pair of jeans and a shirt or a pair of basketball shorts and be good, but as you can see, you can double up like so. Maybe have the fur on the upper half and the hide on the lower half. And for days where it's a lot colder than today, maybe in the teens or the 10 degrees, this is what you might see woodland natives of the time doing. So again, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about today. Like I said, woodland natives were used to the weather. Most of the hunting would have already been done. So, I mean, outdoor activities very well could be limited. I know in wartime, not many people fought in the wintertime. War was normally put on hold until the spring because no one wants to be out fighting in this. So, there's not a lot more to say. It's just they were a very adapted people and a very amazing culture that was used to the environment. So there wasn't a lot needed in the wintertime that wouldn't be needed in the summer. But I gave you guys a quick example today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. It encourages me to make more videos. And I thank you, and I hope to see you all again.